Ladies and gentlemen, we are having Mr. Ousman Noor. He was our keynote speaker in the first session. He is a human rights barrister, co-director at Civilian Agenda, and founder of Protect Palestine. He has been actively advocating for legal and moral accountability in the face of legal justice. Moreover, in this session, Mr. Noor will introduce two impactful initiatives. The one is the Civilian Agenda and Protect Palestine, and speak on why provision of protective force for Palestine is not only viable but also a legal and moral imperative. Mr. Usman Noor, just one thing that due to the constraint of time, you are having merely 7 minutes to wrap up your discussion. Could you please comply with this timeline?
Firstly, Assalamu
Oh,
alaikum, and my
Walaikum
apologies
assalam.
for
Thank you.
missing my slot this morning. Firstly, thank you so much for hosting this conference. That we're at a transformational time in global politics, and it is necessary for us to meet to take action. We have these opportunities now that we perhaps never had in the history of the global South decolonial movement. And I think if we are able to unite and mobilize, we are at a point where we could potentially change the course of the future, and certainly the plight of those who have been living in the colonized world and those particularly now experiencing genocide. So it is crucial that we keep up this momentum. I worked as a refugee and human rights law barrister in London, and then I worked in Geneva lobbying at the United Nations in support of new international law on autonomous weapon systems. Pakistan, by the way, is one of the leaders of creating new laws and regulations in this area, has been the first country out of now 110 countries that have called for new laws against the use of autonomous weapon systems, and they started that back 10 years ago. So in the field of disarmament, Pakistan is actually a champion. I was at the United Nations General Assembly in September 2023, which, as you know, was when the attack happened on the 7th of October. And I was in the Security Chamber of the United Nations, where I was lobbying various diplomats on various issues. And there were protests outside of the United Nations in support of Israel. The Israeli ambassador described Palestinians as subhuman, as human animals, and was beating the drum of war in order to begin this genocidal enterprise that is now nearing completion. I looked in the room and saw my colleagues, other diplomats, fellow people in the disarmament community, essentially nod their head and allow the Israeli ambassador to carry on saying what he was saying, and did not push back against that whatsoever. These are people who have been committed, at least on paper, to international law, to human rights law, but actually when the genocide began, they were totally silent. I decided to try to speak out, and I did. I made a video outside the United Nations, and I was subsequently fired from my job for speaking out for the Palestinian people. Remember, this is in the human rights community, in the disarmament community where I had been working. Even in that community, speaking out for the Palestinian people was considered a sackable offense. And I subsequently launched a claim in Switzerland for unlawful dismissal. This whole process taught me a lot. It taught me that we have a lot of people who say a lot of things on paper, who claim to stand up for these things, but actually, when it comes down to what is needed, they will side with the oppressor. Time and time again. They will not rock the boat. They will not ruffle the feathers of the people who actually have power. And they will, in fact, carry on having drinks and dinners and go to restaurants and basically say nothing as the genocide continues. In fact, many of the people in the disarmament community didn't say anything about the indiscriminate bombing, the mass starvation, the genocide that was taking place for many, many, many months. And in fact, some still haven't. What does this tell us about how power really works? When it comes, when we have states that claim to stand up for human rights, that claim to stand up for international law, do the exact opposite, supply the Israeli genocidal war machine with arms, with fuel, with diplomatic backing. What does it tell us? It means there is a massive disparity in how the world views different communities as having different rights, different worth, different rights to exist. And we know, as people, I'm originally from Pakistan, we know this, that people from the global South have always been treated as capable of just being expended. We are expendable. We can die en masse. Our whole history of the colonial struggle teaches us that what 500 of our lives is worth one person's life from the United Kingdom. That is the reality of the world we live in. That is the power disparity that we have. We know this in the way that the Palestinians are being treated versus the Israelis. And it is so shockingly obvious now to the whole world. But this is where I think Pakistan has a very important role to play. So Pakistan, as you all know, is one of the countries that has never recognized Israel and has done that for ideological reasons. It does not recognize the legitimacy of a colonial state that has exercised ethnic cleansing to get rid of the Palestinian people, that has defied the scriptures of both Judaism and Islam. And Pakistan has actually had a very strong position vis-a-vis Israel, one that others are now thinking, why didn't we not have that same position? Pakistan has actually supported the Palestinian cause, perhaps more than any other country in the world. I know this because at the United Nations, resolutions that are tabled for Palestine are actually done by Pakistan, have been done by Pakistan. It is Pakistan who often comes to Palestine and asks the Palestinians, what can we do for you? And that is something that Pakistan should be incredibly proud of. And it is now something that, if not the states, then people all around the world are starting to realize is the right way of dealing with Israel, which is an illegitimate genocidal state that everyone can now see is devoid of morality. We have now been witnessing the genocide for 22 months. For a very long time, I have been advocating in support of military intervention to stop this genocide. States have slowly come around to the idea of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, but that is totally insufficient to stop what is actually going on, because Israel is ideologically committed to genocide. They don't even need any more money to finish the job. They are already exterminating the population through mass starvation after 22 months of the worst bombing campaign in world history. The equivalent of 8 nuclear bombs has been dropped on the people of Gaza. And so the only way to stop an unhinged fascist force is to stop them physically. Nothing else is going to work, right? We actually need to have states breaking the siege. I don't know if you've been seeing the recent footage, but emaciated children dying every day from starvation. We have seen civilian efforts to break the siege from the Freedom Flotilla. These ships get intercepted and bombed and kidnapped by the Israelis. More are coming along the way, but it is states that actually have the power, if united, to actually break the siege and get the food into the people of Gaza. They also need to implement a no-fly zone. It is obvious, if we want to stop Israel from bombing Gaza, then we stop Israel from bombing Gaza. There are planes going overhead in Gaza every day. Why are we not stopping them? We have the apparatus, we have the machinery. All we need a number of vessels near to Israel that are capable of shooting down these aircraft. And the only reason people don't do this ultimately is because they are scared of Israel. They think that Israel is invincible. They think that it is invulnerable. And they think that no matter what we do, Israel will win. This is an absolute pack of lies. It is a confidence trick. Military with other states like Colombia, like Cuba, like South Africa, like Namibia, like Algeria, states that have had a principled position against imperialism, that have overcome imperialism. They have actually, those states, by the way, have formed a Hague group for Palestine and are taking concrete political action. We've been lobbying them to actually do a military intervention. Pakistan ought to be in that group, right? Pakistan ought to be the leader of that group. Why is it not happening? Because we are not exerting our pressure. We are not mobilizing fast enough. By the time perhaps this happens, it may be that everyone in Gaza is dead, right? So I founded the Protect Palestine campaign, advocating for a military intervention to stop the genocide. We are now having thousands of people across social media demanding that this happens. We have sent thousands of lobbying emails to the leaders of states, to the diplomats in these states, demanding urgent military intervention. I've set out in a publication called The Case for Military Intervention to Stop the Gaza Genocide, the legal obligation. This is not just an option. This is an obligation on states to conduct military intervention. We are witnessing the extermination of an entire people. And the reason people like me, people like you perhaps, can see yourselves in the Palestinian people is because that is our history as well. We are countries that have had colonial oppression, that have witnessed the massacres, that we know deep inside what these states are doing, what they're capable of. So we are with the Palestinians because they represent our struggle. So if we don't stand up for them, we're also not standing up for ourselves, right? And we have this opportunity. We're at this cusp of tipping point now. If you look at the states that are speaking on Israel and Palestine, the narrative has changed. This is an important chance. And sure, we will be part of a coalition of states from around the world that are going to protect the Palestinian people from imminent extermination. So that is my full-time job right now. We also mentioned the civilian agenda. So after being fired by a disarmament campaign for speaking out for Palestine, I founded the civilian agenda, which is using multimedia to change the narrative on who gets to be protected, whose story gets heard. Ultimately, this is about dehumanization. We are not treated as human beings because our stories are just ignored. We need to captivate an international audience by humanizing ourselves, by showing our struggle, by letting the world know that we are actually capable of resisting, that we are capable of building our own resilience. And so the civilian agenda is a platform in which I'm doing that. But really right now, due to the imminent extermination of the entire population of Gaza, nothing is more important than mobilizing a military intervention to stop the genocide. If we're going to talk about critical peace studies, we shouldn't just watch an extermination take place and not do anything about it, right? We have to put our words into action, our theory into practice, and we need to do that now. So I advise anyone to check out our work, protect-palestine.com, and mobilize with us. Pakistan is the right country to be doing this, and others are going to do it if Pakistan doesn't. So I think that's 10 minutes. I'll stop here, and my apologies again for missing my slot earlier today.